Okay, chat, we should talk about the topic of the week in the Guilty Gear community, which is going to be about DPs, or more specifically, DPRC. For some reason, after Frosty Faustings, this became like the topic of the community. So I thought it'd be a good idea if we actually talked about DPRC and just DP characters in general and talk about why they're kind of the center of attention right now. Because there's actually a lot of things that have led to this point where DP characters and DPRC in general is as powerful as it is. So the first thing that we need to talk about in regards to this conversation is a lot of people are confused. Why are we talking about DPRC now of all times? It's obviously been in Guilty Gear forever, not just Strive. It's been in Exert, it's been in Plus R, it's been in other Arxis games like BlazBlue. Why is it the topic of the week now of all times? First of all, I'd like to point out that people have complained about DPRC for many years. In fact, I've been playing Arxis games for like 8 years of my life now, and it's always been a complaint that's existed. It's just now it's kind of at the forefront of the conversation, rather than something that a couple of people are mentioning. So if we look at all of these strong characters in this version of the game, of, you know, kind of common opinion that people have, there is one type of character that is consistently placed in the realm of top 10 right now. You have characters like Kai, you have characters like Soul, Leo, Chip, and even a character like Bridget is arguably in the top 10 realm. And what do these characters have in common with each other? Oh, first of all, they're just basic, well-rounded characters that kind of do everything and don't really have super defined weaknesses at this point. But more specifically, they all have DPs, or meterless reversals. Obviously, these characters are not just strong because they have meterless reversals. They have a lot of other strengths, right? They're some of the best characters at the things they do. They have incredible neutral, incredible offense, very good conversions, all of that. It's not just the DPs that make them good. It does feel like the characters are not balanced around the fact that they have DPs though. At this point in the game, a lot of these characters, especially a character like Kai, who used to not be considered very good when you go back to like Season 1 and Season 2, but at this point he's considered one of the best characters in the game. And all of the characters we're talking about with these DPs, they've been all over the tier list, from being weak characters to being okay to being top tier. But in this version, they've all culminated to being top tier. While having a DP is not the reason they're all up there, it is definitely part of the reason up there, and it doesn't really feel like it's a strength that's considered in their game design at this point. So the first part of why DPs and DPRC is good in this version of the game, I would say, is because of the other characters that are considered meta right now. So this version of Strive is the version where the basic characters are kind of at their best that they've ever been. So if we look at, again, like Kai, Leo, Soul, Ram, Chip, all of these types of characters are top tier in this version of Strive. Previously, other characters like Zato would be considered strong, but he's kind of the worst character in the game in this version of the game. Happy Chaos, who has been a usual top tier, is probably not even top 10 in this version. And other characters like Eno and Milia are good characters, but they're not super common, and they're not like, you know, the super relevant tournament characters, even though they are good. So the mix-up characters that would normally be pretty good against reversals aren't even like the super meta characters at this point. And the characters that are meta are the more basic strike throw characters, where having a DP is super relevant against them because their offense is mostly strike throw. So yeah, with characters like Kai and Soul and all of them, their offense is just stuff like this, right? It's just doing frame traps, it's doing run up throw. All of those types of things are things where having a DP is more relevant than other types of mix-up characters, right? If Milia knocks you down, you're not really going to be able to DP most of the things she does. If Zato knocks you down, you're not really going to be able to DP what he does. These characters that are strike throw based, you actually can DP what they do. So the value of having a DP is higher now, because the type of characters that are good are the type of characters where having a DP is valuable. There are a lot of little things that also go into why DPRC and DPs in general are more valuable now than they were in the past. And it's been a culmination of changes that have happened over the years that have resulted in what we have now. So the first change that actually has made DPRC better is the fact that they removed scaling on DPRC, or just RCs in general, sometime in Season 2. So it used to be previously that when you would hit someone with a Roman cancel, it would cause damage scaling. So the damage you would get from a Roman cancel would be lessened. They removed that a while ago. So one thing that's really effective about DPRC is you actually get pretty meaningful damage from it. It's not like nothing at this point. So, you know, with this just basic combo, I don't even play Kai, I just made up some combo. That still did 160, right? That was almost 50% from just a basic combo. You can probably do more as well. So that type of change means getting hit by DPRC is not just a momentum shift. In many other games, when you hit by DPRC, it's not the most damaging combo. It's not very rewarding. and your reward is reversing the situation. In this game, you actually get pretty meaningful impact from DPRC. The other thing about Strive is that your reward for DPRC is not just reversing the situation and damage. Strive has wall break as a mechanic. So whenever you DPRC somebody, you're also getting access to positive bonus. And positive bonus is hugely advantageous in this game, especially this version of the game, where you're getting your meter back. So the cost of spending meter is not even really that detrimental, because if you hit the opponent, you're going to get it back because you're going to side swap, you're going to be able to break the wall, and then you'll get positive bonus, which refunds you your meter essentially. Other Arxis games haven't had a mechanic like this, so you would do no damage with your DPRC and you wouldn't get your meter back, so you'd always be at a meter deficit compared to your opponent. That downside doesn't really exist in Strive. The other thing that I think goes into DPs and DPRC being so good is that we've reduced damage in this game over time. Over time, up to this version of the game, we've reduced damage in a number of ways, and don't get me wrong, damage is still very high, but getting your DP punished in this version is not as detrimental as it used to be, where you're not going to take as much damage for it. And also, they've made several changes to how burst regeneration works up to this point. So one of the changes they made with burst gauge is that whenever you get wall stuck or wall broken, it actually gives you a ton of your burst gauge back. So whenever I wall stick Soul here, you'll see that he got probably about 20 or 30% of his burst gauge just for getting wall stuck. And this happens with every combo. Right now I have it set to just automatically wall stick them, but at the end of a combo, you usually end up building at least half of your burst gauge back for getting hit. So if you get your DP punished, you'll probably get your burst gauge back during the combo or immediately after the combo. The downside of getting your DP baited isn't even as bad as it used to be, because damage is lower and burst regen is higher. You're more likely to have your burst be available, and even if you don't have it available, you'll probably have it available immediately after getting punished. The latest addition that I think really has pushed DPRC to be more valuable than ever has been, however, is actually the inclusion of Wild Assault. And this sounds kind of weird, so let me explain. Previously, if you would hit someone with a DPRC and you would side swap and do your combo, unless you had another 50 meter left over, which is very unlikely that you had that, you wouldn't be able to break the wall with a hard knockdown because you wouldn't have a super available. So you always had to make the decision of, do I want the knockdown but no positive bonus and keep the corner, or do I want to break the wall, lose offense but get positive bonus so I get my meter back? There's always a decision that you had to make in that regard. With Wild Assault, you don't have to make that decision anymore. So now with Wild Assault, if you get the same exact combo and you side swap, you can break the wall with Wild Assault, which means I took a defensive situation as Kai and we turned it into me doing about 40% of their life, getting a hard knockdown and positive bonus. So I'm no longer at a resource deficit. In fact, I'm going to end up resource positive most likely because I'm in positive bonus. I'm going to have way more meter than they will. I'm going to get most of my burst back as well. And I get to run offense, which when you're in positive bonus, being able to run offense is extremely powerful, right? For all of these characters that are considered top tier, all of these characters with DPs, when they have meter, when they have resources, they are so overbearingly powerful. So that's another reason why I think this mechanic is pretty overtuned at this point, because the downsides of what DPRC is supposed to be, of, you know, being down on resources and it being kind of a pretty high commitment, just aren't in place anymore with the changes they've made. The other thing about it is if someone baits your DPRC, or not really baits, but blocks it, correct? If they block it, you're at a situation where, sure, you're at advantage as the DPer because you RC'd, but you're going to be down on resources, and usually you're not going to have meter left over, right? Usually you're going to be at 0 meter in this situation. So you'll do your DPRC and then be able to run offense, but you're going to have no meter to run offense with. You're going to have no meter to be able to convert the hit. Wild Assault also helps you with this, because even when your DPRC is baited and they block it, you'll always have Wild Assault to be able to make something happen and extend your turn, and people have to consider that. They can't just, you know, push you away and then be safe and take the resource advantage. You always have the threat of Wild Assault to keep your offense up. So the detriment of losing one of your resources isn't as bad because we have 2 resources now. And also, if you end up getting hit by their offense at some point, or, you know, if you end up going back to neutral and then they hit you with like a whiff punish or something, they're able to convert that whiff punish because they have Wild Assault. They don't need the meter all the time because tension is no longer our only resource. So like I said, there's a lot of things that actually go into why DPs and DPRC more specifically have over the years become more and more valuable in this game. And I think we've reached kind of the peak of that, where DPRC has so many things going for it. The type of offense that people run in this game largely is mitigated by having DPRC. There's also little things like having wall assaults available means that universal mechanics like IB and FD and IBFD are less potent, because if someone is, FDing me away, for example, in the corner, stuff like faultless defense is not as effective as it used to be, because you can react to them faultlessing you and use wall assault to get back in. So wall assault makes the universal defensive options a little bit weaker, which means the value of having a unique option like a DP or DPRC is even more valuable because of stuff like that. So in conclusion, that kind of explains why DPs and DPRC are being talked about right now, because there is actually a difference why DPRC is better now than it used to be previously in Strive or other Arxis games. Now, does that mean that DPRC is a problem? Is it like ruining the game? Is it hurting the game or whatever? I don't think it is, and I think it's important for this discussion as well. I don't think most people are trying to make it sound like DPRC is like ruining the game or anything. It's not as problematic as some of the other issues we've had in this game's lifespan, but I do think we're at this point where Strive's actually pretty good now. I think we're at the best version of the game by far, and the problems we're going to start noticing are going to be smaller problems, but they're still worth talking about, I feel like. Is it a big problem? No. Is it maybe the game would be better off if we changed it? Probably. So the question now is, how do we actually change DPRC in a way that makes sense and that actually will fix the problem? The most extreme way to change DPRC is you just outright remove it. Make it to where you can't RC or DP on hit or block. This is pretty extreme and would be relatively game-changing if you did this. I don't think it's a terrible way to fix it, but it's probably not the most clean way of fixing DPRC, because it would be such a big shift in how, frankly, Arxis games have played over the years. I think even just going as far as making it to where you can't RC or DP on block would maybe be far enough, because then at least baiting DPRC would not be as difficult, because the only way to bait DPRC otherwise is to make it whiff, right? And if you're trying to make someone's DP whiff, that means you have to be very far away from them at that point, right? You have to be all the way back here. And that gives the opponent so much leeway to be able to get out of your offense another way. So I think just making it to where you can't do it on block would honestly be enough, and then keeping it on hit would probably be fine. And that way, there's still value to doing DPRC because it would be a high return option, but still be risky. There's some other ways you can fix it as well that people have suggested, such as just adding like extra damage or gravity scaling to DPs. That way, if you wanted to combo off your DP, the combo would be significantly weakened. There are ideas that maybe DPRC combos should just build the opponent an especially high amount of meter and burst. That way there's an extra downside to doing DPRC. I don't know if those changes are necessarily the best or would they fix the problem, but they would definitely make it a little bit easier to deal with them and make it feel less bad to deal with. At the end of the day, I think there's a lot of ways to solve this issue. And again, I don't think the issue is actually that big of a deal. It would just be a nice thing to improve, because realistically, I think the biggest problem with DPRC is it's just pretty unfun to deal with. And I think the characters in particular that have access to DPs don't really feel like they're designed around having one. So you could also kind of just change the characters more accordingly to DPRC existing, possibly. Of course, I do want to know what you guys think over in the comments below. Let me know how would you fix DPRC? Do you think DPRC is even a problem to begin with? Let me know what you think. If you enjoyed the video, please consider dropping a like and a comment. It actually helps the algorithm a lot, and I'm really trying to grow my YouTube channel, so it'd be appreciated. And while you're down there, consider subscribing for future content. If there's any other video ideas you'd like me to cover, whether it's for Guilty Gear or fighting games in general, let me know that as well. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.